I've worked construction for a number of years, and for almost as long I've been scrapping metal. And the reason is there's a ton of metal left over at construction sites. So instead of throwing the metal in the dumpster, I would collect the metal as I was collecting other debris and go throw it in my truck, keep a pile of it. When I had enough metal, I would go take it to the scrap yard, and it would just be a nice bonus. What the problem was is I didn't understand how to scrap metal, and so I would just take in this big lump of metal, and I didn't realize they'll pay you different amounts for different types of metal. So in this video, I want to show you some different types of metals and how to sort the metals to make sure that you're getting the most amount that you can for the metal that you have. So I'm not going to go over every category of metal or every type of metal, because this video would be hours and hours long, but I am going to break down the metals by category so you'll know how to sort the metals, or at least get an idea of how to start sorting the metals for what the scrapyards want. So your first type of metal is your shredder metal, and that is basically dirty metal that has plastic attached to it or any type of fibers or anything like that. So that's your washing machines, refrigerators, and it's also things like I have in the bucket. I have broken tools here, old garden shears that I don't want anymore. I have some different pieces of pipe that I'll never use again. Electrical boxes. I'm not even gonna bother ripping the wood off. Obviously I can't have like a 2x4 hanging off from it, but a lot of this stuff can be dirty. It's not a big deal. They're not gonna pay you a whole lot of money for it. I have old Sawzall blades. Piece of metal that I'm not gonna use anymore for projects. Worn out files. Just all kinds of just garbage metal. A ratchet strap that doesn't work very well or is rusted out. So I have all these different pieces of garbage metal that I'm gonna turn in. They don't pay you a whole lot for it, but it's stuff that I've just collected up in buckets, and I'll just take it in with all the stuff that actually does cost a little bit more money. So I'm also gonna be taking most of the metal off from this basketball hoop setup. The plastic base and the backboard will be coming off because you don't want to leave that much garbage on there, you'll tick them off. Other metal that I'm going to be scrapping this trip is going to be this pipe from this carport. It can be a couple pieces of the square tubing, some rusted out sheet metal, and I'm also going to be recycling this engine with the shredder metal. There's a lot of different metals in this engine block and the heads and things. I'm not going to go through it and take it all apart because it's not worth my time. There's other things that I do that I make more money. So if you have the time, absolutely spend the time tearing engines apart or different things apart. Try to get the different types of metal separated to make more money. Scrapyards have whiteboards or posters where they're telling you how much the scrap price is for certain items. And this rotor is a good example. This rotor is worth more scrapping it as a rotor, which is one of the items on their list, at least at the place that I go to. So they're gonna pay me about 15 cents a pound for this rotor. It's not worth as much as shredder metal. So I used to recycle a lot of stainless steel with the shredder metal because I didn't know any better. So I took this sink out a few weeks ago from a side job, and this is stainless steel. So the way you can test stainless steel to make sure that it's actually stainless steel is see if it's magnetic. If it does attract to a magnet, then you're gonna put it in the shredder pile because it's just regular steel. But if it doesn't attract to a magnet, then you know that it's stainless steel. Some stainless steels are magnetic, but for the most part, if you have your regular appliances and things like that, they should not be magnetic. So the sink still has a soap dispenser on it, has a couple of those little black pads, and then it has little feet for the strainers there, or whatever you wanna call them. So I could sit there and take all that stuff off and probably get more money for it. Hopefully they wouldn't dock me if I took all that stuff off, but it's not really worth my time to do that. Stainless steel is expensive enough anyway that I'll just keep it separated out and sell it. I will take the soap dispenser off because it'll take just a second, but the rest of it I'm not even gonna worry about. It's not worth my time. A lot of scrapyards will also take car, truck, tractor, lawn tractor batteries. So if you don't need the battery for a cord charge, if you just happen to have one of these batteries laying around, you can take it to the scrapyard even if you just need to take it off your hands. Scrapyards also pay by the pound for these batteries. And the scrapyard I go to pays about 10 to 12 cents a pound for batteries. So here I have an aluminum ladder, a pop can, and aluminum siding and flashing. So it's all aluminum, but it's all a very different cost, and it's all very different types of aluminum. And so you want to make sure that you separate everything out properly. So first with a pop can, scrapyards love aluminum cans. So obviously you're going to make a lot more money if you smash down these pop cans, fill them all in a bag, and recycle them separately. And the scrapyard will like it as well, less work for them. When recycling aluminum fascia or siding, make sure you get all the nails out and try to get as much of the caulking and other garbage off from it, just so it looks a lot cleaner. You'll get a higher price for it. Aluminum ladders are known as extruded aluminum, and it's just a process by which they're made. But you can see with this aluminum ladder that it has some steel on it. You can see where it's rusted, and it has the little pads and stuff on it. So usually I would cut that off just because I could get a higher price for it if they don't have the garbage on it, because obviously they don't want to sell it to whoever they're going to sell it to with that on there. And so they'll give you a higher price if you can get it to be just the extruded aluminum, no steel on it. I'm not going to waste the time doing it. Regarding wire, your highest paying wire is going to be your bare copper wire. The problem is that sometimes it's hard to get the coating off. When it is convenient, I'll cut the bare copper wire out of the Romex. But when it's not convenient, I'll just leave everything just like this, and I'm going to recycle it just like this. I might cut this piece off, but the rest of it I'm just going to scrap as coated wire. And you really take a hit on it. The bare copper wire is somewhere around like high twos, almost $3. This other stuff, they'll give you like 5 cents a pound or something. But you're weighing the coating and the wire and everything, so you take a huge hit on it. But when I take in a bunch of like this first generation Romex and all this other garbage, it'll add up, but it's not worth my time to sit there and strip it down. Where I absolutely will spend the time cutting metal apart is any type of plumbing materials. So there's a huge mixture of brass and copper, and they pay a different price for different grades of copper and for different grades of brass. And the price is pretty significant. So what I'll do is anything that is brass or anything that has any solder or any of the joints together, I will cut all those out and I'll sell that all as brass. And any of the copper pieces I'll sell just as regular copper. The issue you have is if there's any paint or any type of corrosion or anything on the copper pipe, they'll give you number 2 copper for it. So in order for it to be number 1 copper, it really has to be clean. The place I go to, they're super picky, so I pretty much never get clean number 1 copper. So what I'll do is I'll cut all this apart and sell this number 2 copper, which is still worth more than the brass. What you absolutely don't want to do is leave any iron in with your brass or copper, because they'll dock you pretty good. So I usually just cut right here along this brass stem and then throw this in with the shredder metal. So I just left work, and my work is basically a quarter mile from the scrapyard, so I never really shop around to see who's paying the most money. I just know I can just drive right down the road, go scrap the metal, not have a lot of drama. And so regardless of what these people are paying, I usually just go here. And this is the scrapyard, all kinds of different metal. Right over there in the non-ferrous building, that's where I'm going to be taking all the small bits of metal. And this is the shredder pile right here. Here in a minute, I'm going to pull onto the scale, get weighed up. Then I'm going to circle the building, unload all of the shredder metal, and I'm going to pull back onto the scale. I just got done doing all the little metal, and what they'll do is they'll just give you a sheet, and they'll fill out whatever the category is. So all this stuff I just had in buckets, so they just go and weigh it individually, and they just give you a total. So what's on this sheet doesn't include the shredder metal, because all there is somebody in the building running the scale. So I'll run this page in, and they'll add the shredder metal to the list, and I'll get paid. There is a big list of things that scrapyards will not take. Usually they have it posted somewhere that's in a conspicuous area. Obviously they don't want any live ammunition. They don't want any cans from pet food or from any type of food, just attract rodents and things. They don't want any metal containers with any type of hazardous waste or fuel in them. If you are going to go scrap a car and you're just going to pull it in on a car trailer, they don't want the fuel in the fuel tank. And so you might have to get it up on your trailer and drain all the fuel and cut the gas tank off, because they absolutely will not take cars that have fuel tanks on them. Also, the place that I scrap at is very particular about not having any Freon in freezers or refrigerators. The scrapyard I go to will also not take any type of road signs, and they won't take any type of metal that's used to build railroads. And so kind of know where you're getting this metal. Don't just claim ignorance and just go start picking up metal from somewhere. I think you're going to go in there and recycle it and nothing's going to happen. And this certainly is an exhaustive list. You definitely want to see what they'll take and what they won't. A lot of places will even make you take the tires off from cars or from lawn tractors or whatever you want to recycle. And the last word of advice when scrapping metal is make sure that you're honest in everything that you do, because they're really starting to track scrapping metal. So whenever you go into the scrap yard to sell this metal and you go to get paid, they're going to want to see your driver's license, and they'll put your driver's license on file. And so if you're like your neighbor Rick and you want to start going and cutting catalytic converters off from cars and going and taking them, scrapping them in, you might end up in the same jail cell with him when he gets caught, because they're really cracking down on people stealing catalytic converters off from cars. So yeah, if you have a truck or a trailer and you do want to get into scrapping, definitely check out the Facebook community pages. There's constantly people on there trying to get rid of all different types of metals. And that's about all there is to scrapping metal. The biggest thing is when you go to these places, if there's something you don't understand, just ask. And so if you want to know, why didn't I get all the money for this aluminum? It says I should be getting this much or this much for copper. Make sure you ask, see what the discrepancy is, and then next time just make sure that you clean up the metal or do whatever they want you to do. You kind of have to play their game. So if you're looking to get into scrapping or looking to make more money at scrapping, I hope this video helps, and we'll see you in the next video.